Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Relatable Radio Hour with me, Dr. Green. Thank you so very much for joining. Today we have another amazing guest that's going to really help us in his journey, help us to be inspired, and help us to talk about something that's really important. So I'm really excited about diving into it, and I'll introduce him in just a second. But with everything going on in this world, I think it's always good to have people to validate the importance of mental health and mental wellness, because a lot of us are struggling on different platforms, different areas of our life. And I think it's always important for us to hear how important it is to get that mental health and to get that wellness with your mental health. Because in all different areas of careers and jobs and things, and just even in life, we are just indoctrinated with so much stuff that can really throw us off balance. And I think tonight's guest is going to definitely just dive into that a little bit more. So I would like to welcome to you all Eric McCants. Eric, how are you doing, sir?
I'm fine, sir. I'm doing just well. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. Well, I did not share your background, but I definitely want you to just kind of share with the audience a little bit about yourself, the type of work that you do, and what's brought you here today.
Yeah. Like I say, I'm born in Augusta, Georgia, and like I say, I come from a rather tight family. I was raised by my mother, and then my aunts and my grandfather. I have an older brother and sister. I'm the youngest. And just to start off a little bit about me, I grew up going to a church, and that's why I went to school first. From K4 to second grade, I was in a private school that was church based. So that's why most of my foundation is through church. And after that, like I said, I went off to public school, and like I tell people all the time, it was a change coming from private school, going to a public school, and thinking that Kurt Franklin music was kind of out
Mhm.
there, and going to see rap music. I say it was a change for me. So I kind of had some behavior problems during there. I wasn't too crazy, but it took me some time to get myself together. And then eventually, I started playing instruments because my mother believed in the fine arts. So I played the violin, I played the trumpet. My brother and sister played different instruments. And then, like I said, my mother had us in different things. Like I know how to cross stitch, which is most people don't believe me, but I say I can do your bird or something if you want me to. Uh, and then eventually I moved on to sports. I say I started playing football, I started wrestling, and then eventually in my 10th grade year, my cousin and my uncle moved down. My uncle, who was an archbishop who passed away, they moved down and they trained in martial arts, and I started doing martial arts, and I've been doing it ever since. So after high school, I went off to college. I was 17 years old. It was a lot for me, just being out on my own, having that much freedom. And I made the biggest mistake of thinking, okay, I have 8 a.m. classes. Let me sign up for all 8 a.m. classes. I better make it a class and I have free time. Didn't work like that. So eventually I had to academically withdraw from school, and I started working at a local grocery store. The grocery store was called Kroger. And while doing so, my mother was on my case saying that, well, you need to get back to school or you need to find something to do. Like you don't need to just be sitting here at this grocery store. And while I was doing that, it was a police officer working special duty there, and he was talking to another guy about going to the police academy. He was telling him that it's always a guaranteed job. You'll never be tired. Will not be tired. You'll never get tired of work because there's always something different. My mother was bothering me, so I went up and talked to the guy, and eventually I went to law enforcement academy, became a police officer, and I've been doing it ever since. So I've been law enforcement about 14 years. During that course of time, I've got different certifications. I got my bachelor's degree and master's degree in criminal justice, and here I am today. Uh, Over the course of that, I learned about mental health. I can say firsthand that my mother never showed that she was going through things mentally or she was having bad times. Like we just didn't see that as kids. And me as an adult, I say, I struggle all the time with different little things, whether it's family, job, and all that stuff. But I keep it to myself, and I'm trying to tell people to break that habit. Like it's okay to talk about your mental health. It's okay to get therapy because I'm going to therapist now. And I tell people it's okay to do that. Like I said, we all go through struggles. You might not hear about it, but everybody has their own set of problems. Some people know how to deal with it on their own. Some people need external sources to help them get through it. And so that's one of the biggest things I try to tell people. I say it's okay not to be okay. We all struggle with something. I say find you somebody that you can talk to, that you just open up and that won't judge you, and then you go from there. So that's why I like talking about mental health. I know how important it is, especially in today's time, to have our mental health in check.
hmm Yeah, and I know you glossed over a lot of stuff in being in law enforcement, and we're going to go back and kind of dissect that a little bit more. It's interesting to hear how your journey kind of led you into law enforcement, especially coming from the backgrounds that you had prior to getting into that. But yes, the mental health space is very important. I'm sure you working in law enforcement, you have a robust purview of how that looks, even working as a police officer or working in the law enforcement arena, I should say. And then, of course, the individuals that you're probably coming in contact with, just on a day to day basis. Um, let's go back to you just kind of getting into the law enforcement arena because uh, first and foremost, I think it's always takes a special person to want to get into that, because
Yes,
it's
sir.
not something that everybody can be a part of or even handle, even have that mental capacity to handle. What was it about that law enforcement? I know you mentioned the guy mentioned the police academy and things of that nature, but what was it about it that made you kind of inspired or excited you about getting into that space?
Honestly, like I said, I went up to school for business management, and the plan was for me to take over my cousin's karate school. Well, that didn't work out. So when I was
Mm-hmm.
talking to the police officer, he was like, "Man, you're gonna have action, you're gonna have fun." And me, honestly, I was just thinking, okay, let me get a job, have something stable that my mother wouldn't bother me about. But once I went through the
Right.
academy, I fell in love with it, and like I said, I've been doing it ever since. And I will say, like I said, I started law enforcement when I was 20, and I tell people this all the time. That's a lot of responsibility for somebody that young that doesn't have a lot of life experience. Now, some people can handle it, but you have the ability to take away somebody's freedom. You have the ability to use force and all that other stuff on people. And like I say, if you're not ready for it, you're just not ready for it. And for me, during that time, I wasn't ready for it. Like I say, my first job, I was in law enforcement for about a year and a half. Uh, my old sheriff was my police instructor. He was the head instructor of the academy, and he was my first police chief. And he always told me, he said, "Man, you're gonna be a good officer." He said, "But you gotta learn how to grow up." Because I mean, I had a lot of issues going on. Like I said, I was 20 at the time, so I had a lot of women issues going on and just different things. But like I said, I was 20, I was single, and it was just a lot going on. And one thing I've learned just over the course of time that people like people in uniform. Like I said, people are naturally drawn to you for one reason or another. And then, like I say, report writing, speeding, it's just some of the various things I was written up for, and eventually got me in trouble. And then, like I said, eventually came to a head. My police chief told me, he like, "Hey man, you're going to be a good officer." He said, "But you can't stay here. Like I say, you need to grow up some. You need to go out, get some life experience, and then come back when you're ready." So I had to end up resigning from that first job. And like I tell people, I said it was probably the best thing. Now, first, like the first year or so, I blamed him. I like, man, he just didn't like me and all that stuff. But as you mature, you understand, like, okay, it was my fault. And most people don't want to take accountability for the actions. Like, all this was because of me. I didn't think about it. Like, I was 20. I left at 21. As I was young, I blamed him. I was like, man, he just didn't like me. He just had it out for me and all that other stuff. But honestly, he was looking out for the best interest. And I try to tell people that, especially young officers, I say sometimes you need that life experience first before you jump into this. But I say you're gonna be different dealing with people from different backgrounds. Some people you never dealt with. You never know how some people talk or act around law enforcement. If you never dealt with that, it's gonna be an issue. And that's why I think it's very important for us to take different training like verbal judo, just to learn how to talk to people, how to interact with people, learn how to build a rapport quickly with people. Because I mean, no one likes robots. And I say you don't want to be that officer that's just robotic, like, hey, give me your name, date of birth, and get this stuff and get out your way. You want to learn how to talk to people. And one of the biggest things you could do as a law enforcement officer is just listen. Most
Mm-hmm.
people just want to talk. They want to talk through the problem they're having on. They just had a domestic. You want to separate the parties. You want to talk to them. Like, what's going on? Name it today. What's going on? And I say you could probably dive into what's going on. What the real issue is. Okay, well, he lost his job. He's struggling with different things like that. And then you can figure out what's going on. You can work on a solution. But that's why I tell people when you mature, you'll learn that it's not more important to talk. Most of the time, it's important just to listen to what people have going on. And like I said, that's kind of like my venture coming into law enforcement. Then I grew into it as I got a little bit older.
Yeah. And another essential part of, mental health is being able to listen, which is, something that you just mentioned. I want to kind of parallel that to, us really kind of diving more into mental health, the mental health aspect. Um, a lot of people, get the idea that, law enforcement don't have the ability to listen
Mm-hmm.
because it's in the listening that you really kind of can get to the root of an issue or a problem, right?
Yes, sir.
Um, with it being so important to listen, especially when it comes to hearing some of the signs of mental health and just kind of knowing where people are standing in your line of work. What has prepared you to be such a good listener and to be able to listen to the key elements of what people are telling you?
Honestly, from my mother, say she used to tell me all the time, say, "Boy, you need to learn how to listen." And I say,
Mm-hmm.
"Whether I was getting in trouble or not," she's like, "You're not listening." I say, and that's the issue. And then being around my uncle, my cousin, like say, in martial arts, like to say, they'll give you instruction, they give it to you one time, and you better listen for it because if you messed up, there's going to be consequences to it. So learning how to listen has just always been something that's been important to me. Now, whether I did it or not is another thing. But I say sometimes you act like you're listening, and you could be somewhere over. Your
Right.
mind could be somewhere else. And like I say, it happens all the time. Like sometimes we'll
Yeah.
disassociate. Like I say, I find myself doing it sometimes. I'll be talking to somebody and I'll
Mm-hmm.
be sitting there, be literally looking at them, but I'm not even thinking about nothing that they're doing. So you got to train yourself to focus in on what's important and what they're
Mm-hmm.
talking about, especially when you're talking to people that's going through something traumatic. Like I say, because they want you to listen to them. And then if they feel that you're not listening to them, that can cause them to get aggressive or that can cause them not want to talk anymore. And sometimes you need that information that they're trying to give you. So you got to stay in tune or pay attention to what they have going on. So listening has always been something that I've been taught. I say whether I did or not in my younger days, no. But like I say, as I've gotten older, I'm becoming better at learning to listen and also pick up a body language. Because I tell people, I say
Mm-hmm.
they might not say it, but their body's going to tell you what's about to
Right.
happen next. And I tell
It
that's
always
one thing about law
does.
enforcement. I say people are going to tell you what's about to happen next. In most cases, like you're talking to somebody, they might have a warrant or whatever. They're about to give you a clue they're about to run. If you see them just start doing this, or they pulling up their pants, or they just start stretching, something's about to happen. So you just got to pay
Mm-hmm.
attention to that type of stuff. So listening and paying attention of body language is always going to be very important.
Mm-hmm. That is very key. The body will generally always tell you what somebody is thinking.
Yeah.
Just curious, do they in the police academy or any academy for law enforcement, do they kind of prepare you all to be strong listeners in those types of situations? Because you're being put in situations, I'm sure that could be really compromising or really dangerous. So the key to listening plays a really huge part into your next moves or your next steps in whatever situation you're put in.
Yes, sir. I mean, they teach you that, but like I tell people, I say the academy prepares you just enough to make it out there. Like I say, over time you got to build those things, but they teach you to listen, teach you to pick up all the key facts so you can put it in your report or things to listen for if you feel like something's off. Like I say, you can hear from people in their tone when things are changing that something's going on. Like you could tell when somebody comes to the door, they don't want to open the door all the way, and they be like, "I'm fine, I don't want to talk." And you come in there and be like, well, you want to step outside, just talk to me a little bit more. And you could tell that something's going on. You could tell how tense they are. You're like, okay, well, maybe I need to investigate further, or I need to go inside and see what's going on. Because you never know what's going on behind that door because you can't
Right.
see. But
Right.
those little small hints, and I tell people, I say the best officers are ones that can pick up on those small clues about what's going on around them. But I say they come to the door and they heard the close it behind themselves, and it might be a domestic, or they'll be like, okay, well, he left or something like that, and they don't want you to go inside. Well, okay, I just need to go inside and check on your safety, make sure everybody else in the house is safe. I know you said they're gone, but I like to go inside, just make sure everything's okay, make sure it's played, because you might go in there and find a whole crime scene. So you got to be one of those officers that likes to dig a little bit deeper. And like I tell people, I say, you got to be nosy. It's just plain and simple. You got to be nosy. And I say, you don't become too invasive into people's personal life, but you got to ask them, like, man, are you sure you're okay? Well, if you have anything else going on, here's my number. Because maybe they don't want to talk to you right then and there, but they'll call you later on, maybe hour,
Mhm.
okay, this is what's going on. I don't want to be involved, but you got to learn how to listen. But the academy does teach you different things about picking up on certain things when you listen to people to add in your report or just pass information along. But I say sometimes you might have a simple case, but you could pass it along to somebody like an investigator and they can take it that much further. So they do prepare you for listening. But you get better over time. Like I say, but you come
Mhm.
out straight out the academy, you're not gonna be one of those good listeners. You're gonna be one of those people that just want to hurry and get this report out the way so I can go out there and do the fun stuff. So once you get a
Right.
little bit older in it, you understand the importance of listening.
And I'm sure you all probably have like certifications that you all have to have that are kind of situational based and probably has a lot of that listening component to it. Because it seems as though the way that society has been going as it relates to law enforcement and just crime in general, they're needing for the law enforcement to be really up to speed on how current events are going and the importance of all the stuff that you just mentioned, but also just that listening part of it to
Yes,
kind
sir.
of you know subdue
Hmm.
some of the issues that you all may actually be in contact with.
Yes, sir. Like so, they have a lot of people that are becoming like not use of force experts, but they're like negotiators and stuff. Like I say, a lot of times you get
Mm-hmm.
SWAT call outs. And sometimes if you have a good negotiator that could just listen and can say a few words back, you could talk a person out of that situation. Uh, Also, like I said, one of the best classes I took was verbal judo. I took it when I was 21, 22. I didn't pay much attention then, but the art of learning how to use your words to
Mm-hmm.
de-escalate a situation. I say that's one of the most powerful things. If you're a good officer, you're gonna know how to de-escalate a situation. You come out there and people are fighting actively. Hey man, you find a person that's an aggressive one or one that's having the most problems, issue, you go ahead and grab him real quick, walk him off, and you talk to him, calm him down, and more than likely everybody else around them and calm down. So these
Mm-hmm.
are just little small things that you pick up in some of the classes that you could take. And one of the best things I tell people is pick up a book and read. Like I said, that probably some of the best things I learned that I said, especially now, like I said, as I've gotten older, is just reading. Like I said, I've got many good books that help me with my leadership and mental health and things that I tell law enforcement officers, like these are books that you need to read. They'll help you out just to become a better person, but also a better law enforcement officer. So it's just small things that sometimes you got to take the initiative to do it yourself because, we're not going to tell you in law enforcement, hey, man, you need to read this book. It's required of you, but I'll hint at, hey, man, this would be a good book for you to read in your spare time and just digest and just think about some of the things that you're doing when you're out here.
Mm-hmm. That's such a good segue to my next question because you are exposed to a lot, as it relates to, people in their trauma situations that may happen. You mentioned actually also that, you're currently in therapy. And
Mhm.
I know that there's so much power in that, being someone who actually has been in therapy myself and of course has a counseling background. Uh, Talk to us a little bit about how you have noticed the importance of keeping your mental health very strong in the line of work that you do, whether it's coming in contact with people on a particular case, or dealing with your fellow colleagues working in the law enforcement world, because you all see a lot that could be potentially traumatic, and that really weighs heavily on your mental health, as well. So talk to us a little bit about, just the range of mental health situations you've kind of been in, being in law enforcement.
Uh, for the longest, there's always been a stigma around law enforcement about seeking mental health treatment. And when I'm trying to break people over, like it's okay. Like say you're going to see some stuff. Like
Mm-hmm.
most people in their life won't see half of the stuff that we see. Like I said, we see people in fatalities, see people get murdered, we see people that have been sexually assaulted, we see people that have been trafficked. And then the thing is, like you'll go to that call, then you got to clear up, you go to something else, and you got to be able to keep that same game face. Like okay, well, I know somebody stole your phone. Let me handle that. But you just got through off of a fatality. So you got to learn how to be able to put that in the box at that moment and then maybe later
Mm-hmm.
on talk about it. But one of the issues that we have is like, over time they tell you, you might suck that up. That's just part of the job. Especially if you're in a very big agency, like you like working in Los Angeles or New York, something like that. Like you ain't got time to sit there and cry on the side of the road. You got to hurry and get to the next call. So what I tell people is like I say, you gotta learn how to talk to people about it. And I say it doesn't have to be some of the people that you work with. Sometimes you gotta have an outside source. And I was talking one day, and my brother was like, "You need to get some therapy." I was just talking. I wasn't even talking about that. I was just talking about like stuff that happened at work. I like, man, I seen this fatality. I said, we got in the car chase with this person, we got in the foot chase with this person, and I wasn't saying anything crazy. He was like, "You just need therapy." I was like, "I don't need no therapy." I was like, "Man, why do I need therapy?" He's like, "You need to talk to somebody about all the stuff we're going through." I said, "Yeah, we might find it exciting, but you need to let this stuff out." And I tell people, I say, man, it's literally okay to say a lot of times it compounds. Like you'll be dealing with stuff at work, you come home, you deal with stuff at home, and I say, then 1 minute or another, it's gonna come out in the wrong way. And I say, going to therapy is gonna help. But I say, you're gonna have somebody that's gonna have an unbiased opinion that doesn't know you, he can just drop that load over. And I say, a good therapist will talk back to you a little bit, but he's just gonna let you let it all out. That's how my therapist is. I say he'll come in there and he'll be like, well, what's going on this week? And when I first went, I was one of those people I didn't really say much. I was like, man, this is that. And then eventually I just spilled my beans. I was like, okay, man, this is what's going on. I'm tired of this person, I'm tired of work and all this stuff. And then eventually it became a healthy relationship where we could just talk to each other. He'll text me throughout the week. He's like, I'm just checking on you. I know something major went on. Would you like to talk about it? And I say, I got this type of appointment. So I tell people in law enforcement, as I say, you see so much, you need to talk to somebody. And I say, what you don't want to do is you want to come home, and especially if you have a spouse or something like that, end up taking it out on them. I said, they're not going to understand what's going on. They're going to be like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, Biggest thing we tell people, I'm fine, I'm good. And then we'll go close the door and shut everybody off.
That's right.
Got to learn how to get out of there. Like I say, you might not tell them the whole story, but you need to let them know something went on. Okay,
Yeah.
well, we had a shooting go on, had to try to form CPR, and this person passed away. Simple as that. Now, you're going to have some people that's going to ask more questions, but you can be like, okay, that's all I'm going to give you right now. Let me get myself together. So just talking about things is going to help people out. And I'm trying to get law enforcement out of that stigma that it's literally okay not to be okay. Like I say, we all go through issues. We all have our problems. Just talk to somebody. I say, whether it's going to be somebody in law enforcement or it's going to be somebody outside, get to talk to somebody because it's just needed, especially in today's climate and the things that we see.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And you're absolutely right. I'm curious about, when your brother told you that you needed to go and get some therapy. You had a little bit of pushback at the beginning, but you eventually
Oh, yeah.
did it.
Yeah,
So go ahead. I'm sorry.
it took me about a year and a half to even go. Like,
Okay.
he kept telling me, like, man, you need to get therapy. That I had another guy that was one of my mentors named Charles Prescott. He like, man, you should get therapy. Because, most time, like, they never talked about it. They never told me that they went to therapy, but they did go to therapy. And they were like, you need to go to therapy. I'm like, well, are y'all even going to therapy? And eventually, like, yeah, we go to therapy. I said, well, I never knew that. Like, well, we just never cared to share, but we're just saying that you need to try to go get some therapy. And like I tell people, so you're not going to therapy just because you have issues. Sometimes you don't even have problems. It's just good to talk to somebody. And I tell people all the time, like, they think you just got to go to therapy when you're having like a mental crisis, or something like that. Oh, you can be perfectly fine. It
Mhm.
can be something that's bothering you from when you were 5 years old or something that you never told anybody about. And then it comes up. Like I said, I was talking to my therapist one time, and I told him about the time my mother whipped me for a stitcher cord, and I felt like, okay, this lady needs to go to jail. It happened 25 years ago, and I said, I
Yeah.
love my mother to death, but I said, oh, this, and it just came up out of nowhere, and I
Yeah.
laughed about it, but I said I didn't even think about that until I was talking to my therapist, and I tell people, I say, you have some things that's buried in your
Mhm.
brain that's
Mhm.
been holding back, and you haven't even thought about it, but one little thing could trigger it, and then it comes out. So just make sure you talk to somebody, and that's why I try my best to tell people it's okay. You're gonna have a good time. I can tell people, I say, just if you don't find the right therapist the first time, doesn't mean you have to give up on it. Sometimes you take you 2 or 3 times to find the right person that fits you. So,
Yeah, it takes a while to kind of find that proper fit because not everybody is going to be equipped with the
yeah,
skills to kind of handle people with their situation. And sometimes us as the clients don't necessarily feel, that yin yang
yeah,
energy
that connection.
with a therapist, and that's okay. Yeah, like you said, I
Hmm.
mean, we can't wear all the types of shoes in the world. We has to be a certain size that fits
Know your
us
brand.
that makes it better for us to wear shoes. So that's a great thing that you brought up, and you also brought up somebody that's really amazing, Chief Prescott. Big shout out to him. He's an amazing mentor to have. So I'm glad that he was able to also help you. Just look at therapy a little differently because yeah, we all do need it, and I would definitely imagine being in law enforcement is necessary and you said something, you're saying it consistently that you're wanting to break the stigma of law enforcement. Is it, and I guess I should ask you what stigma is, but I want to ask it. Is it
Mhm.
essentially that, oh, I don't need therapy, I'm fine, or is it I'm too tough and rough to go and get therapy? Or is it both?
Well, the biggest issue was that a lot of people see is that, okay, if I go to the therapist, they feel like they're going to take my gun and badge. They think like, okay, I'm going to
Oh,
go talk to somebody. And they're like, okay, you can't be out here doing law enforcement. I say, it's a lot of steps till you get to that point. I say, most time you just go in there and tell them about the issues that you're seeing. I say, now, if you go in there and say, I want to commit suicide, I want to murder
right.
couple people, then yes, they're going to take you gun to badge.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's not what most of these people are going in for. They're like, okay, I had a traumatic event, might be going through a divorce, or kids are acting up. I said, they're not going to take your gun to badge. But that's one of the biggest things that people say, well, okay, I go to the therapist, I'm going to get labeled. People are going to think that I can't perform my job to the capacity that I need to, and they're going to take my gun and badge. So that's one of the things that stigma around law enforcement is that, okay, I go to therapy, they're going to end up taking my gun and badge. I say in most cases that's not going to happen. I say you might have maybe 5%, but that's when somebody's going off the deep end, like
Right.
they're going off the deep end. Like, but if you're just having those day-to-day issues, or you're struggling with different calls, or you keep seeing the dead person that you dealt with and all that stuff, perfectly fine. I said that's just going to be between you and your therapist. Now, if it becomes too much of an issue or something's going on, of course the therapist is going to alert somebody that they need to. I say that's their job. You will want them to, but okay, maybe they need some further treatment. Maybe they need to take a couple of weeks off. But that's the extreme cases. In most cases, it just doesn't happen like that. But we assume in law enforcement, we've been taught over time for people that's been doing it 34 years, you go up there and see that therapist, they're gonna take your gun and badge, you ain't gonna be a police anymore. It's just not like that.
So it's more so if I go to therapy, I'm quote unquote crazy, and they're gonna take my badge away, and then I won't be able to work.
Yeah. Well, they feel like so they're gonna lose their gun and badge. And one of the biggest issues that we just have with law enforcement is that we let the job become our identity. And you could tell a lot of times is that when people have been doing the job 30, 40 years, and after they retire, about 2 or 3 years, they pass away. They lose that sense of worth or whatever. And like I say, it's nothing wrong with wanting to be a law enforcement officer, loving the job. But I tell people you got to have a life outside of it. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm one of those people. I work all day and I'll come home, watch Law and Order, I'll watch Chicago PD, but you got to find some outside sources. Go to the gym, find friends, and that law enforcement officer because we have the biggest habit of hanging with people that do the same thing we do. Have some
Mhm.
people that are not around the same profession that you do. But you
That's
got to have people with different opinions because, of course, you talk about law enforcement officers, they're going to agree with everything you say. You got to have somebody like, okay, no, you're crazy. You don't need to be doing that. No, this is wrong. All that stuff. You got to have that difference of opinion. So, yes, you're going to have law enforcement officers as friends, but you got to have people outside of it. You don't become one of those people that just straight law enforcement 24/7. You got to, first of all, you got to decompress from that. You got to get away from it. I say that's a lot to carry on your shoulders every day. But also, it's just healthy to have things outside, eternal sources outside of law enforcement. And that's why I tell people, I say, you got to find a hobby, find something else to do. I say, for us, like I said, we'll get off work and we'll just sit in the house, we'll watch TV, then we'll text our friends from the job, talk about calls that happened a couple of days ago, which is fine, but you can't be doing that all the time. And I tell people you got to break that habit of just being a police 24/7, which
Mhm.
is kind of crazy because, like I said, we're on duty 24/7. Like I said, don't get me wrong if I say we're required to act if something goes on. But what I'm saying is, like, you don't want to be stuck in that police mode all the time when you need to be out there enjoying your family, friends, and finding something different besides law enforcement when you're off.
Having that balance, right? Doing
Yeah,
things in moderation and having people around you. I think it's really important that you said that. Having people around you that aren't in the same field. So you're not constantly talking about the same thing. You're getting a
yeah.
different perspective from different people, and you're
Hmm.
immersing yourself in people that have a different background than you so that you're not just kind of divulged in always talking about stuff in law enforcement. Because that's, when we do that, we're going to have the same type of energy all the time, and that's not needed all the time.
Yes, sir. And the thing about law enforcement, like most law enforcement officers are class A, let's say type A personality. Like we're strong, we'll butt
Mm,
head with anybody, we're that wrong
right.
and right. I say you got to get away from people like that all the time. I say because it ends up turning into just a pissing match, and you just got to have somebody that's going to be calmer, that can
Right.
bring a different feel to the conversation. So that's one thing I tell you. That's why you got to have different people around you because I say you can't be around that same energy all the time.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm curious because it sounds like you are very much an advocate for mental health, and I really appreciate that. Especially with your background in law enforcement and working in it as you do. I'm curious, are you in a role where you're, kind of helping other officers kind of look at it differently, or, kind of serving as an advocate that can say, hey, this is something that we need to start, including in our regimen for our officers to take in therapy or to be more indoctrinated in therapy? Do you have a role that you've been allowed to kind of be a more bigger advocate for it, or are you more so the person that, like, talk to me about it if you want to talk about it, and I can help you and just kind of go from there?
Well, I do both. As I moved to another agency in January, and then one of the guys, I started doing peer support with him, and he's at my agency now, so he has me be on the peer support team. So if somebody needs to talk or a critical incident does happen, they'll deploy us to go out there and try to help talk to people. But also, like I tell my guys all the time, like I said, I do life coaching on the side, and like I said, I'm not charging for it, but I tell them, I said, you need to talk. Like I said, I'm always here. But like I said, I'd rather you talk to me than something else happens on the outside. But I tell people all the time, and I tell my guys all the time, I say, you need to go get some therapy. And while I'm laughing and playing about it, I say, hey, man, just get some therapy. I say, it's really okay. Like I say, there's nothing even wrong with you. But I say, you could just talk to somebody. And that's why I tell people all the time, like, we got to get out the habit of thinking that, okay, people are telling me I'm going to therapy because they feel like I'm going crazy. I'm like, no. I say, I go to my therapist just to talk to them. I say, man, I had a long week. I say, I put some ribs on the grill. They didn't turn out the way I wanted to. Uh, that upset me. I say, it pissed me off. So, man, it's just little small things like that. But like I say,
Yeah.
uh, one of the biggest things I do is just on LinkedIn. I just use that platform just to reach anybody I can about mental health. and just telling them about my stories. Like I'll tell them about my whole day when I go to therapy. Like this is what me and my therapist talked about. This is what's going on. I tell them at the end of the day, I like, okay, highly suggest you try therapy. I say whether you're going through something or not, just give it a try and see how it feels. So I'm always going to put people in that realm that's saying, okay, let's try some therapy. Let's try something to better our mental health. Like I say, in today's world, you can get overstimulated quickly. And
Oh
tell
yeah.
people, I say, a lot of times, especially just talking to general people, not even law enforcement, like people just feel like they're existing, they're not living. They just feel like they're going through the day to day. And like I say, you need somebody about that. I say, it's not an issue. I'm saying, but you see, we can get more out of life. And they just feel like, okay, well, I'm gonna get up, go to work, talk to my family, come back home, do it over again. You should have an excitement about life and not just feeling like you're existing, like just you have to do these things just to survive, which you need to work to survive. But you need to have a little bit more out of life than that. So that's why I try to tell people about mental health and just general, like I say, because it's not just law enforcement, like everybody needs it. So I feel like we all need to try to get out there and just find the right person that's for us. It doesn't even have to be a therapist. Like I said, you could just have a pastor, a mentor, or somebody just to talk to.
Hmm. Well, I appreciate your stance on it and appreciate that you know, are kind of serving as that both capacity in your realm of work because I would imagine you having such a transparent, just open and honest discussion with people, it makes them kind of think like, oh, okay, well, maybe I should go get some therapy. Maybe I should speak to somebody because, yes, it's always better to talk to somebody instead of just holding it all in. So I'm hoping that your colleagues are being open with you and that, yeah, they may need to go seek therapy or maybe just, you know, talk to you about whatever they're dealing with. Um, Kind of circling back a little bit, not just colleagues, you know, you're in these situations where you're dealing with some, you know, really serious cases, really serious people who are really, you know, kind of going through those instances. Are there any experiences that you can share with us where you've kind of had to kind of step in to really check the role of someone's mental health that maybe, you know, was a part of a particular crime or situation that you had to deal with?
Yeah, I mean, it happens all the time. Like say, you go to somebody residence, and actually, I can
Mm-hmm.
remember this case. It was at my old job. This guy, well, this guy and lady, they had broke up. They were getting divorced and all that stuff. And the guy was taking it really hard, but he was trying to act like it wasn't bothering him. And on the outside of the house, it appeared that everything was fine, like everything was in place. But you go into the house, it was alcohol everywhere. I mean, nothing was made up. I mean, dishes were piled high and all that stuff. And she had nothing. And I told him, I said, man, I mean, what's really going on here? Like, man, I just haven't had a chance to clean up. Like this is like 2 weeks worth of stuff. But I didn't, keep bothering about it. Like, hey, man, I said, I don't know exactly what's going on. I don't know exactly what you're feeling. I say, but it'd probably be best to talk to somebody. And he'll like, well, I'm not crazy or anything like that. I just need to get myself together and all that stuff. I said, we all experience things in life. And I say, we all handle things differently. I say, some people can handle things, they can bounce back. Some people can't. I said, and it's okay. I said, you don't even have to talk to me about it, but it's probably best to either get a family member, somebody in church, or a therapist, or somebody just so you can talk to about what's going on. And then we started talking more. And then eventually he broke down. He started crying. He was like, I just
Mm.
don't know what to do. I said, we've been together for 15 years. I said, we have kids together. I said, I've poured my whole life into her and now she's gone. I say, I don't think I can move forward. I said, at the end of the day, I said, and I tell people, I said, feel what you're feeling, cry, talk to someone, but at the end of the day, you're going to have to pick up, keep going. I said, you can't stay in the state that you're in because you're not going to be able to survive like this. I said, it's perfectly fine. I said, we all been there. We've all been to breakups. I can tell you firsthand, I know how it is. I said, you be out there crying. You don't think the world's going to go on. I said, because you're so hurt in that moment. But eventually, you're going to find the strength to move on. You might find somebody else, might pick up a hobby. You might just get up and move from where you're at. You might go to another state. I say, but you got to deal with what's going on right now. And say, you trying to tell yourself that everything's fine. That's okay. You got to admit to yourself that, okay, I'm struggling. I need some help. And I'm saying, and I tell people all the time, it's not mean that you're going crazy. It's just mean that this moment in my life is becoming a little bit too much for me to handle. And
Right.
that's okay for it to happen. Just talk to somebody. And I say, whether you want to talk to me, I say, I'll come back out here and talk to you. Or if you want to get like one of your family members, your mama, whoever it is, you need to get somebody else involved with you. So one, they can help you going on, and then you clean up what's going on around you, and that's going to help put you in a better space. I say, but you're going to hurt. So you might even try to get back with her, and you might actually even get back with her. I said, but right now you got to deal with what's going on. So that yeah, I mean, like I say, you see it all the time out there. Like you'll see people
Hmm.
have those type of incidents going on, and it'll lead them to start drinking, start using drugs, start acting out. I say, and then you got to separate them and talk to them. Like, hey man, I know you got stuff going on, but you can't be acting this way. So you got to figure out what's going to be the solution for you to get past this. So people have different solutions. I tell people, I say, therapy might be best. Going to work out, just packing up and moving might be best for you. You just got to figure out what's going to work for you in that situation.
Absolutely. Well, I think it's important to equip people with that type of encouragement on the job. Especially in
Mm-hmm.
situations that you all encounter. I know it's a lot that you see, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure in that moment, and I'm sure he appreciated you being able to give him that type of advice and just give him that type of support. Would you say that particular instance, just you in that moment, is that a rarity when it comes to law enforcement?
No, I say, man, like I said, we see people struggling all the time, and you hear stories about it of individuals, officers helping people out. Like, say, I work with a lady named Heather, and this family, I believe their house had just burnt down like the weeks before Christmas. She was able to get community support, to have fire department, police department, Santa, get gifts brought to the house. So you'll have officers do this all the time, but a lot of times it's just not mention or officers don't even talk about it. Like you'll
Gotcha.
have somebody you'll pull over, they have multiple kids, none of the kids have car seats. You'll have officers go into their own pocket go get them car seats, or somebody that's down in the luck, they don't have anywhere to go, they'll go buy a room for them. So you see officers do things like this all the time. But most time in our case, we don't want credit for it. Like I said, we just feel like this is what we do, this is our job.
Right.
We're there to help people get past what's going on right there. And officers do it, like I said, they do it daily. And I say, and sometimes I even seen it like an officer go out there and talk to a guy, he's having a hard time, then they become friends. Then he's able to build that relationship with
Yeah.
that person to help them get past what they're going through. So I mean, it happens all the time. A lot of times officers just don't talk about it. They just be like, okay, that's part of my job. That's nothing special about that. I'm just doing my job. Let's move on to the next part.
I think it's important that you said that, because I think a lot of people probably think that law enforcement is like stoic,
Mm-hmm.
unapproachable,
Yeah.
people who
Mm-hmm.
don't really care, have that care and concern.
Mm-hmm.
So I think these type of conversations are important to kind of show that that officer that is enforcing the law, they aren't some like robot, like you said earlier. They're not
Mm-hmm.
a robot; they're an actual person that's
Mm-hmm.
seeking to help and to dissolve a situation and to help that person move forward out of this particular situation. Um, it's not mental health related, but I am curious, since we are talking about it. How can how can we do a better job of kind of sharing these types of experiences so that people are not thinking that the law enforcement is always out to get them or always out to be like the bad guy, so to speak, to that particular situation? Like,
Well,
how can we do that? Because I
kind of
think
like a
that's important.
it's kind of like a double-edged sword for law enforcement because if you do share it, they're gonna be like, well, you're just doing that just to get likes and all that stuff.
Oh
And
yeah.
then if you don't share it, they're like, well, you're not doing enough. But
Yes,
a lot of
that's
time
true.
agencies are doing it, but they don't want to do it all the time. Because like I say, you have officers going down the road, you'll see somebody car disabled, they'll stop. And like I said, that's just part of our job. They'll need a tire or they need a tire change. You don't have equipment. You'll have officers out there in the heat changing tires and different things like that. But and like I said, you see it all the time, especially like when kids are involved. But most of us the soft for kids. If something going on with a kid, we'll try to go out there and talk to them, mentor them at the school and different things like that. Um, it's just that double-edged sword. Like I say, there's a lot of
Mhm.
agencies are becoming more transparent about the things that's going on.
Yeah.
But like I say, if you just flood the feed, or flood Facebook or wherever it's at all the time about well, officers doing this and officers doing that, you're gonna have that negative effect. And like I said, you can't pay attention to people's negativity, but you don't want that to become a problem, I would say. But some people feel like, okay, they're just doing that just to make it seem like they're just out here just helping everybody. Because everybody's not gonna like what you're doing, but to an extent, you need to put it out there, but you don't want to put it out there too much. But I say, I guarantee you, every day is an officer out here doing great things for individuals that they're never required to do in law enforcement, but they're doing it because they want to see people do better. And like I say, you see it all the time. Like you'll see somebody that's homeless, you'll take them to the homeless place. Like I say, you don't even have to do this as an officer. You could take them down to the homeless camp. Okay, well, this person needs a room for the night. Can you help them out? You might know somebody that has a job. They're hiring. But I've done this before. Like this one guy I stopped. He had some narcotics on him, but he was a really good kid. he was just down on his luck. He had to be like 21, 22. He was from Arizona. He moved to Georgia. His family was kind of through with him and all that stuff. I said, man, I'm not gonna be able to help you go through what you're going through right now, but like I said, I could talk to some people about getting the job. And so he ended up getting the job. He was good at it. And like I said, I've heard from him since, but like I said, it just gives you that sense of purpose that, okay, man, I helped them do this one little part. Now, I don't know where his life's going to go after this, but hey, for the moment, something's positive for him. And that's what we want. At every reaction or every interaction we have with a person, we just want something positive to come out of it so people can understand that, okay, yes, we're law enforcement. Yes, we have to do our job, but at the end of the day, we still care. And that's why I tell
Mhm.
my guys and tell people that when I'm teaching in the academy, I say, everybody doesn't deserve a citation. Everybody doesn't deserve to go to jail. Sometimes people are just down in their luck. Like I say, some people are just having bad moments. Like I said, we stopped somebody maybe 4 or 5 months ago in my old HC. They were doing like 95 and 55. In my mind, like, oh, this person's about to go to jail because they're speeding. Come talk to the guy, his mama just passed.
Mm.
He was racing to the hospital. I like, man, we're gonna give you an escort to where you need to go to. I said, handle your business. Just make sure you do it safely. I said, I'm not gonna let you just speed over here, but we're gonna try to get you there as quick as we can. I said, but I know you're going through a lot of emotions. This citation ain't gonna do nothing for you right now. You don't even want to hear that. Hey man, let me get in the car. I'll run my lights to where I can run you to. Slow down, be safe about what you're doing. I say, hey, I'm praying for you and your family. Just get wherever you need fixed. And like I say, that's all you can do at that time. But that's why I tell people, I say, everybody doesn't deserve a citation. Everybody doesn't deserve to go to jail. That's where you come from listening. You got to listen to people
Mhm.
to figure out what's going on. So
That's right.
that's just one of the things.
Absolutely. And it definitely helps. It definitely helps to have that in your arsenal to use at the appropriate times.
Yeah, discretion is really big. Like I said, you got to be
Yeah.
able to have discretion in this job. Like I said, if you have good officer discretion, like I say, yeah, it'll carry you very far in this career.
Hmm. Absolutely. And it looks like it's definitely done that for you. And I guess we didn't really highlight, you're in this new agency now. But just briefly, just kind of tell us, not, specifics, because I know you probably see a lot, but just kind of
Mm-hmm.
tell us how the day to day looks for you, in this new agency, in this new world that you're in.
Well, like I said, the age I came from was the county was big. It was about 835 square miles, but they had 25,000 people. So it wasn't as much call volume that we dealt with. And I say I'm kind of in the same role I was before, which is on the crime suppression team. And basically, like I said, we're an aggressive patrol unit. If anyone is out there to make contact with people that's involved in illegal activity, as far as people that have warrants, narcotics, illegal firearms, different things like that. Now I moved to this bigger agency, and like I say, it's got about 250,000 people. So we're dealing with people all the time. And eventually they deploy our team out to the problem areas and they want us to try to help improve the quality of life for people around them. Essentially, like I said, we're out to look for people that's involved in illegal activity. So if you're out there selling drugs, they want us to deal with you. If you have guns illegally, they want you to deal with that. If you have warrants and you need to come to jail, they want us to do that. So that's essentially what we're doing from day to day. Like we'll go from one area to the next, uh, trying to deter people from committing crimes. And people that are committing crimes, they want us to deal with them. And if we need to lock them up, then we need to lock them up. So that's essentially what my day to day is. Like I say, I have my team will deploy. Okay, we need to go to this area. They've been having a whole bunch of burglaries. We need to sit around, see if we can catch some of these people that's committing these burglaries. Well, these people over here said they've been having a problem with a drug house. Sit up, try to get some people from this house, then maybe we're passing on narcotics. So that's essentially what the day to day is a lot. But like I say, there's a lot more action. Like I say, you going I say in my old age, we might have 6 calls of service, maybe 10 calls of service for the day. Up here, they're pushing 300 plus. So
Oh,
it's just a
wow.
lot more going on.
A lot more going on.
Yes, sir.
Wow, 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 wow. That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if there's someone that is listening, watching, this conversation right now, and they, are not really sold on the idea of the importance of maintaining good mental health, uh, what are some reasons you would share with them that it is important, in fact, to make sure that your mental health is, at a good place?
Well, for one, it's just going to improve your quality of life. Like I say, man, you might not think you're lashing out on people, but like I say, just because your mental health is not in order, you could be, pushing those away that you're close to. Like I say, you could be pushing your family away, you could be pushing friends away. And you might not see nothing wrong with it. And I say most of the time when we're going through something traumatic, we don't see nothing wrong with it. So that's why I tell people, I say, you might not see it as a drinking problem because it doesn't start off as a drinking problem. You're like, okay, just gonna have a drink tonight, to the next night, then it becomes an issue. Talking to somebody and going to therapy is gonna it's not I say it's not gonna probably stop you from it. And it might not make things better, but it might give you just something, that little nugget you might need even 5 years down the road, you be like, okay, well, because it happens all the time. Like you'll talk to somebody and you're going through something, you remember something that happened 6, 7 years ago when somebody told you, hey man, you're gonna go through dark times, you're gonna have rough times. When those things come around, this is what you can do. Like I say, you can go to the gym, you can go to Bible study, wherever it is. And I tell people all the time, like I say, man, you just gotta have that mental capacity uh to be strong enough to go for it. Because like I said, a lot of people are just scared of therapy, and I can't tell you why. I said I don't know what the stigma is around it. And I say I guess they just feel like people are going to label them. And like I tell people, you don't even have to have people in your business. Like I say no one has to know you're going to therapy. You can tell them that okay, I'm just doing what I need to do to get myself together. Me, I just try to be more open about it so I can have more people to understand that it's okay. But I say when you have somebody that's open and transparent about it, and they feel like okay, well you're doing okay, maybe it's okay for me to do it. But just a couple of steps and things I tell people. I say, if you're feeling like things are going downhill, just talk to somebody. It doesn't have to be a therapist, but talk to somebody. Two, I tell people all the time, write things down. If you write things down, like say, and express your feelings, I say you might come back a couple of days later and be like, okay, man, I was going through something. Maybe I should, check some things out. Maybe it's not all good and happy. But I say, we go through highs and lows of life, but just having something to write down helps out. And I tell people all the time, like, we kind of getting out of it as people of writing things down. I say you have a phone in your hand all the time. Just say just take notes, or when you're feeling something, okay, this is what's going on, this is what's bothering me. Just write it down so you can come back and revisit it. Because like, sometimes you'll forget about it and you'll be like, okay, that was an issue then, but then it pops back up. And I say so just talking to somebody, writing it down, and just being strong enough to admit that okay, I'm struggling. I say things aren't going the way I want them to go. We're having issues. I need to fix it and be able to be, bold enough or strong enough mentally to admit that. And like I said, a lot of people aren't. They're not strong enough mentally to admit that, okay, I'm having issues. I need to do something about it. They'll be like, okay, it's just going to pass by over. Like I say, we all have rainy days, but sometimes you need somebody to help walk you through that rainy day. So those are just a couple of things I tell people down. To talk to somebody, write it down. And like I say, just be able to be mentally strong enough to understand when things aren't going the way that you think they need to go.
Love it. I think those are great, great, great reasons for sure. Last question for you, man. What's one word that personifies who you are?
Uh, that's tough one right there. Kind of hard to find one word. Hmm, I would say tenacious.
Oh yeah, yeah, I love that.
Yes, I'm a go getter. Like I say, I tell people all the time. Like I say, um, I'm firm but fair. But that's why I tell people about my leadership style. Like I say, I'm gonna be fair with you, but I'm gonna be firm about it. And
Yeah,
some people like it, some people don't. But I've always learned over my time of being in law enforcement, being in football, karate, with my mother. I say most of the people that you thought were the hardest on you have the biggest impacts on you. I say
yeah,
they push you to that limit that you didn't think you had. And like I said, why you don't like them at the time? I say a lot of my football coach I didn't like it. Like, man, you got me out here running extra laps on stuff. It pushes you to that limit and you build that appreciation later on in life. Like I say, I don't need you to thank me now, but eventually down the road, you'll understand why I was so hard on you and why I was pushing you. I was just trying to see that greatness come out of you. So I'm just real
absolutely.
tenacious about the things in life that I do.
Love it. Love it so very much. Eric McCants, thank you so very much for joining us tonight and just sharing so much about your journey and just your stance with mental health and just being an advocate for it, in your line of work. And I think sharing your perspective of why mental health is so important, working in the career that you're working in, it really helps to kind of cement how important it really is because I know everybody that's watching or listening can just kind of fathom the types of things that you are encountered with. And for you to speak so highly on why mental health is important, I think it's really going to help some people to really think about and reconsider maybe some of those thoughts that they've had about, just the mental health space. So thank you so very much for sharing that with us today. If individuals wanted to reach out to you, how could they do so?
I said my biggest platform I'm on most of the time is going to be LinkedIn. I say that's where I talk about mental health almost daily. Actually, you can always shoot me a message on there, and I say I can respond.
Okay, sounds good. One last thing for you. What is something that you're grateful for today?
Uh, Family. I say I always know the importance of family. I say as I'm starting to get older, I'm starting to see more people pass away, and just being able to have my family here. But like I tell people all the time, my wife's father passed away last year. Uh, I seen the toll it took on her. And like I said, you got to make sure you hold on to family as long as you can. Like I said, you don't want to have people here longer than there should be. But I said, I've seen it happen. Like you have family members in the hospital, or the quality of life there. You, as a person, you want to hold them to them. You want them to stay here with you, but they're just not having that quality of life. But just family has just always been important to me. And I tell people all the time, treasure that time because you never know how long you're going to keep them. So family is always going to be one of the
That's
most things I'm grateful for.
that's exceedingly important. I think I'm just grateful that when things are out of our control, there's nothing to worry about because we serve a God that can just kind of handle everything. He's sovereign, and I'm grateful for His sovereignty. Just him being available to do everything, and He has the capability to make everything happen. So I'm grateful
Yes,
for
sir.
that today, for sure, for sure, for sure. But thanks again for joining us. I really appreciate you being on. For anybody that's watching or listening, please make sure that you are following me on all my platforms. Make sure that you go to this YouTube page. You can watch this episode and many other episodes from the past, and also subscribe and just check out my website and all my other platforms. And we're going to have another amazing topic, another amazing guest at another time. So be watching out for that very soon. I hope that you all have a great day and just have a blessed week.